guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and really appreciate you guys checking today's video out and spending some time with me. And guys, today I'm going to do a long video, and I'm going to explain to you guys exactly how I was able to make a career in bass fishing, and sort of give you guys some tips and advice if you'd like to do the same thing. And like I said, this has been a 50-year journey I've been on and continuing, and I thought a lot of people that watch the channel might be interested to sort of see how it all went down and what has to take place and what took place in order to be able to make a living fishing. So we're going to get into that in today's video. Again, like I said, it's going to be almost like a seminar video. Also, guys, before we get started, just want to remind you real quick about the sale going on my Solar Bat Series RB2 and RB3 Series sunglasses. You can get them all this next month for 30% off. I'll put the Solar Bat link in the description if you guys would like to order a pair. And I suggest these high contrast yellow lenses like I got on right now. I think you guys would really like them, so much appreciated there. Okay, guys, I'm going to start from the beginning, man. This is going to be a long old videos that I sort of wanted to, I thought it'd be an interesting story because I think a lot of people don't really know how you do it or how it goes about it. Everybody's road's different, and I'm going to sort of explain to you guys how mine started. Now, my first memories of fishing, how it all started is my mom and dad used to take us every summer down to vacation on Table Rock Lake, a little mom and pop resort called Rod and Reel Resort. And I didn't do much fishing down there, but my dad did, and he'd come back in with these big bass from Table Rock Lake, fishing with him and a friend. And then they'd tell me stories about fishing, and something about it just fascinated me. The sights and the smells of being out there on a boat dock, and just talking about fishing. Then I started watching fishing shows like Harold Lindsley. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that, but he was one of the pioneer fishing television show hosts back in the early 70s and late 1960s, and that really got me interested. And I was super interested in it, but I didn't really have many places to fish. And my dad would take me fishing occasionally, but we never caught very much, and I never caught very much, but I was still really interested in it. And my mom and dad got me a subscription to Bassmaster magazine in 1974, and I started reading Bassmaster while I was in grade school. And there's something about it. One of the sections they had in Bassmaster was called the Tournament Trail, Bassmaster Tournament Trail, and they covered all the Bassmaster tournaments. And I was just fascinated by that, about these guys like Roland Martin and Bill Dance and Rayo Breckenridge and Jimmy Houston and all the old timers making a living fishing. I just thought that was the coolest thing in the world. And then when I got into high school is when I really started to get into it. And I started wading creeks. I started sneaking into farm ponds. I helped form a bass club at my high school in Joplin, Missouri, there at Parkwood High School where I went, called the Ozark Hog Hunters. This was back before anybody had any type of high school fishing. And we had about probably 10 or 12 members, and we would get together like once a month, and we would have a little tournament like on little ponds and stuff just around Joplin. And that's how I got started out with that. And then when I got my driver's license when I was 16 years old, the first thing I wanted to do was get a boat. So I was working a part-time job at a restaurant called Rafters Restaurant, bussing tables, and I was also washing cars at a car dealership called Tri-State Import Cars in Joplin where my mom worked, saving up some money. And I found a 16-foot flat bottom over to Rummage Sale that had a trailer on it over in Galena, Kansas, which was about 10 miles from Joplin. Went over there, bought that boat, and took it back home, put it in my dad's garage, and I started working on it. And I, painted it camouflage. I put a floor in it. I took plywood and put a floor in it. I went and got some carpet, like some AstroTurf type carpet. Put the carpet in there. I bought me a Minn-Kota trolling motor, 12-volt trolling motor, mounted it on there, and got a little Lowrance depth finder, a flasher, like a from 19 whatever this was, 1976 or something. So I had this Lowrance flasher on there, and then I found a 1967 model 9.5 horse Evinrude and bought that and had my whole rig set up, man. I was just so proud of it, so happy about it. You know, bought it with my own money, you know, and I hooked it up to I had a 1971 model Datsun pickup that I bought for $600. So I got my rig now, and every day I'd pull it to high school. You know, and all the girls thought I was a big nerd. You know, bass fishing wasn't cool back then at all. It's like, they're like, you know, they thought it was ridiculous. And I started, you know, going to the lake on the weekends, you know, between working my part-time job. And I didn't know what I was doing. I'd get down there and I'd just stumble around and I'd fish, and I'd try to use the stuff I read about in Bassmaster magazine, and it never worked. So anyway, about that time I joined a bass club called Big Mo Bass Club there in Joplin, Missouri. It's actually Webb City, Missouri. And that's when I really started learning a lot about fishing, because I was able to fish with some guys that knew all about fishing. And this was back when jerkbait fishing was just, nobody ever did it. They didn't even know what jerkbait fishing was. I got to learn about jerkbait fishing from all the Ozark experts. I got to learn about flipping. I just had a great learning experience. So in 1980, I fished my very first tournament, which was it was called the Kidney Foundation Buddy Tournament down at Table Rock Lake, out of my 16-foot leaking flat bottom boat that I got at the Rummelsell. And I ran around in this particular thing. I ran about 2 or 3 miles down the lake, and I started fishing a black jig and pork frog there at Table Rock Lake. This was a May tournament, first part of May. And I caught 3 fish in that tournament. I caught a 7.5 pounder, a 4 pounder, and another 2 pounder, and won big bass of the tournament and got second place in the tournament, my very first tournament. So, and this will tell you how long ago it was, guys. I kept the 7.5 pounder and mounted it, which was stupid. I mean, but back then we didn't know any different. I mean, that's what everybody did. That's why there's no big fish in Table Rock Lake anymore, is people like myself were just uneducated at the time. Obviously, I wouldn't do that in a million years now, even if I caught a 25 pounder. But that got me hooked, man. That, you know, winning the big bass in that tournament and getting 2 checks. I got 2 checks in that tournament, and I was just hooked at that point. So at that point, I graduated from high school in 1980 and started college. I was working my part-time jobs, working about 35 hours a week in my part-time jobs, and going to college full-time there in Joplin. And at this point, I knew I wanted to be a pro angler. I mean, I had followed it for a long time. You know, thinking about it, that's all I wanted to do. And I set my path in 1980 to be a pro angler. And the reason I was going to college is I wanted to get a degree to, and back then it was only like $500 a year of the tuition, so it wasn't much. And so I wanted to get a degree to try to make myself a little bit more marketable to sponsors. I had it all planned out. And I started fishing every weekend. I was fishing a ton of buddy tournaments with my friends, trying to get a lot of tournament experience. And at that point, the only thing that there was the Bassmaster Tournament Trail and the old Redman circuit, which was now the BFL circuit. But I just, from about 1980 to 1984, I just fished a buddy tournament every weekend. You know, got a lot of experience fishing lakes around, all my lakes around the home here, Grand Lake, Stockton Lake, Table Rock Lake, Bull Shoals Lake. And in 1984, I decided, a friend of mine talked me into fishing the Redman Tournament Trail, you know, like the BFL now, where they had the All-American. And then I was trying to save up enough money to fish my first year on the Bassmaster Tournament Trail. So in 1984, I fished the Ozark division of the Redman circuit. And my very first tournament, I caught 26 pounds at Bull Shoals, finished second or third in the tournament, and went on to qualify for the Redman Regional at Kentucky Lake. And I went down to that tournament, and as just luck of the universe would have it, I qualified for the Red Mountain All-American. And here's how freakish it was, guys. The first day, I'd never been to Kentucky Lake. The first day of the tournament, I caught 1 2-pounder, and I was in, like, I don't know, 100th place or something in the tournament. The second day of the tournament, it was noon, and I had 2 hours left to fish, and I didn't have a fish in the boat. And I was fishing this place on, Kentucky Lake off of Lake Barkley called the Little River. And one of the ways I like to fish back home was to run to as far as I can get up the back of a creek and start fishing. So I had 2 hours left to fish, didn't have any fish in the boat. I said, I'm going to go to the back of this creek as far as I can get up in there and see what I can do. So I went back up in there, guys, and I started flipping my black jig and pork frog, and that's all I did back then. I had 30-pound high visibility string line and a half-ounce black jig with the black pork frog. Went back in there, started flipping laydowns right off the bat. I caught a 6-pounder, then I caught a 4-pounder, and then I caught another 3-pounder in like 45 minutes. And the fishing was really tough in this tournament. And went back to the weigh-in there, and I'm standing in the weigh-in, guys, and Rick Clunn is right behind me. And of course, I'd never seen or talked to Rick Clunn ever. He's my huge idol because he just got done, winning the Bassmaster Classic, and Rick Clunn standing right behind me at the weigh-in tank. And he looks in my bag and he sees that 6-pounder and he goes, man, that's the one I needed. So I wound up qualifying. I finished 7th in the tournament and qualified for the Red Mountain All-American. That particular tournament, when I qualified for it, it got me my first sponsor because Nina Wood, Forrest and Nina Wood, called me up at the end of that Red Mountain All-American down at Lake Toho in Florida and wanted to know if I wanted to get sponsored by Ranger Boats. Yeah, I did because I loved Ranger Boats back then. So they gave me what was called a demo boat where, I could use the boat at no charge for a year, then I had to sell it and give them the money back. And at that point, it was 1985, and I'd been working, saving up my money, and I sent in my deposits to fish the Bassmaster Tournament Trail. The deposit, that back then the tournaments were $600 a piece, and I sent my deposits in. I'd saved up enough money for my deposits, and I had a $3,000 bankroll to start the Bassmaster Tournament Trail in the fall of 1985. It used to be a split season. So, sent my entry fees in, guys, went to my first tournament at the St. Lawrence River, had a high finish in the tournament, finished, I think, 18th. And again, out of just luck of the universe and luck of being at the right place at the right time, I qualified for the Bassmaster Classic in 1986, my rookie season. And looking back in retrospect, guys, it's almost like some things are meant to happen because I was not good enough to qualify for the Classic, yet I did. It's like everything went perfect. I never lost a single fish all year long, which now I lose fish every day of a tournament. All season, I never lost one fish. I wound up making the Classic by less than a pound, and that was the big break that I had in my career because Ranger Boats called me up again, and they wanted to up my sponsorship. They wanted to pay my entry fees to the tournaments, which was awesome. And I started getting some other sponsors too. I got Fish Formula, I got String Line, I got a couple other paying sponsors, and so I'm on the road, man. I'm fully invested in, as a pro angler now. I've made my first Classic. I'm 23 years old, got everything looking forward to me, and fished the Bassmaster Tournament Trail for the next 2 years. And struggled, did not do any good at all in the 1987 and 88 season. I had a few decent finishes, but I missed the Classic both of those years. So starting the 1989 season, which was my third season on the circuit, I was just getting by. I was just making ends meet because I was at that point I didn't have very many expenses. It didn't cost near as much. I was still working part-time, had some sponsors, and at the start of the 1989 tournament season, our first tournament was at Bugs Island in North Carolina, which I'd never been there before. Went down to that tournament, guys, the first tournament of the year, and won the tournament. Won my first Bassmaster event, $50,000, you know, 24 years old, just won 50 grand, which was a lot of money back in 1989. So that was probably the turning point of my entire career, because I went on to qualify for the Classic in 89 and 90 and wound up qualifying for 9 more Classics over the years. But what happened with that is the next year, 1990, everything started coming together for me. And over the course of like 1990 and 1998, I won like 7 or 8 boats, won a lot of money in the tournaments, you know, just was doing really, really good, consistently qualifying for the Classic. They started the FLW Tour in 1997, and I started fishing it in 1998. And when they started fishing that, when they started the FLW Tour, they had a program which was called the FLW sponsor team deal program they had. And what they had is FLW was sponsored by Walmart at the time, and they had like 50 of us that Walmart provided us boats. They paid our entry fees. They gave us some additional cash. Just a great sponsorship through FLW, through Walmart. And that is the period that really allowed me to make a lot of money in the sport. So from about 1990 to about probably 2003, that was the golden years, guys, for me in my circuit. I was doing good in the tournaments. I had a lot of sponsors. I was making a 6-figure income or more, which was great, unbelievable for that time in the fishing industry. And won my second Bassmaster tournament in 2001, 2002, and everything was just going great. I mean, it's just like I had everything clicking on it. I had, good sponsorships. My confidence was high. I was at that age in my 30s where everything just sort of comes together, guys. And that's sort of like the magic age for tournament anglers in the 30s, because you still haven't suffered all of the injustices that come at being with a pro angler over decades and decades. You still have some imagination and creativity. You got experience. You got passion and enthusiasm. Excuse me. So the 30s is usually when you do your best in tournaments, and so everything was clicking really good up until probably about 2006 or 2007, and at that point, everything just started getting a little bit tighter in the fishing industry. Sponsors they were wanting to cut back a little bit. The sponsorships that Walmart had with their vendors were sort of going away. So that entire sponsor program that FLW had was starting to weaken a little bit. Bassmaster wasn't doing very good because at that time, guys, FLW was the #1 circuit. They paid more than Bassmaster. Everybody was fishing them. Kevin Van Dam, Clun, everybody was fishing both circuits. I was fishing both circuits, the Bassmaster Top 150 and the and the FLW Tour, but it was getting tighter. It'd been going strong for about a decade and it was starting to drop off. So then, guys, in 2008, in September of 2008, the stock market crashed. And I don't know if you guys remember about that, but it devastated the fishing industry in the terms of the marketing dollars they had. In September of 2008, within 2 or 3 weeks of the stock market crash, myself and every single professional angler out there lost all their sponsorship dollars, or at least at the very minimum half of their sponsorship dollars. And at the time, I was in the process. I was building a new house. I bought 140 acres. I dug out a 16-acre lake, and I did that because I was making a lot of money and everything looked good in the future. And my dad told me like a year before that, he goes, Randy, I'm going to tell you right now, He goes, you better stop blowing all that money building all this big house and everything, because you might hit a dry spell sometime. And I was like, I didn't pay much attention to him, and you know, I thought about it a little bit, and sure enough, he was right. Guys, when that stock market crashed in 2008, I lost every sponsor I had. I had no income coming in, and I wound up losing the house. I lost everything that I had earned, you know, in my over decade of fishing, which was a lot. I lost it all, you know, except for just a small fraction, you know, of what I could recoup when I had to sell the house because I couldn't pay for it. So 2009 rolls around, guys, and I'm like at the lowest point in my career, you know, absolutely the lowest point in my career. Over the next year, my mom had 2 strokes that I had to help take care of my mom. I got a divorce from my wife of 15 years. I'd lost everything that I had. I had to drop out of the 2010 season because I didn't have the sponsor. I had to help take care of my mom because she was bedridden, and my dad was older too. So in 2010, guys, I had to quit fishing. And for somebody like myself that my life revolved around, that was like, you can't believe how devastating that was. So like I said, I lost everything, man. Lost absolutely everything, starting from nothing. So in 2011, I got a call from, I was trying to figure out how to, I was trying to figure out how to get back into the sport of fishing, because I wanted to get back into it, and we got my mom a little bit more stable, and my dad was taking care of her. So I did an article for Bass Fan Magazine talking about how I didn't have a sponsor, and they were just talking about my career in general. And I got a call, guys, in December of 2011 from Al Bridgeford, who his company, Bridgeford Food Corporation. Al was a big fisherman. He called me out of nowhere. He goes, Randy, I saw your article on Bass Fan. He goes, I followed your career, ever since you started. And he goes, let's talk. And after that conversation, Bridgeford became my title sponsor starting in 2012, which got me back into the sport of fishing. Forever grateful. They're still my title sponsor to this day. Just the greatest company in the world, guys. If you guys want to support a company that is just everything's made here in America, they support the sport of bass fishing. The integrity and the ethics of that company are second to none. They're just the greatest American company you'll ever see. Support Bridgeford, Sweet Baby Ray Jerky and the Bridgeford products, guys. So, that being said, Bridgeford Foods gave me a second life in the field of fishing. So I continued fishing the tournaments, FLW tour tournaments. And as time went on, FLW started going downhill. And FLW got bought out by MLF. The payouts went down. Everything was bad. Everything was going downhill. Sponsors were dropping out right and left. The industry really took a nosedive in about 2012 in a really big way. I mean, a lot of different factors came along there, and it was just, and it still is. It still hasn't recovered. It still, has not recovered basically from that 2008 point. So anyway, guys, I was trying to figure out some way to, reinvent myself, or figure out some way to get back in the sport and sort of regain my place in the sport, because I was falling by the wayside, not fishing Bassmaster. I wasn't doing as good in the tournaments. So I decided to start a YouTube channel in 2020 or 2019 or 2020. Yeah, 2020 is when I started it. And I didn't know anything about it, guys, about YouTube. I knew nothing about it. And the only reason I wanted to start a YouTube channel is I was trying to get my Facebook and my Instagram and my social media build up, because that's what the sponsors wanted. That's what the sport was turning into. So I thought that if I just filmed a few YouTube videos that, maybe that would be some value to the sponsors that I had. So I started filming them, guys, and everything, started out slow, wasn't that successful. It took me like almost a year to get my channels monetized. In other words, in order to be monetized on YouTube, you've got to have 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours. So putting my videos up every 2 or 3 days, it took me about a year to reach 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours. And I think in the beginning of 2020 or the end of 2019, I got my first monthly check from YouTube, which was $87, my first check. But at that time, COVID hit, okay? And what happened is when COVID hit, people had to stay home, and they didn't have as much to do, and they started watching YouTube videos more. And over the next 2 or 3 years, guys, from about 2019 to 2022, my channel just exploded. It was, and for a lot of different reasons. Number one is I had something different. Most YouTube channels back then, they were highly produced. They had drones, they had music, they had brash hosts that were like, Guggen Squad type people. Back then it was basically like the Guggen Squad. The YouTubers were the younger generation. I didn't know how to do any of that stuff. The only thing that I could do, I couldn't even film a video with a GoPro camera, guys. I couldn't figure out how to work a GoPro or keep it running. So out of frustration, I just started using my cell phone and just doing simple videos like in the truck and my tackle room, and people liked it. They responded to it because it was different. And my channel grew, really, really rapidly. And at the same point, I sort of switched gears on my tournaments, and I stopped fishing all the national tournaments across the country and started fishing locally and regionally, like with the Toyota Series and the BFL circuits, which I'm still doing now, and basically transitioned into a full-time YouTuber. So that's how it happened, guys. That's how my career sort of unfolded over the course, of the last 50 years. It was like ever-changing. Things were always changing within the industry. You had to change with it. You had to really, really stay devoted and focused and passionate to be able to sustain yourself in the sport. And I've been really fortunate to be able to do it for so long and continue to do it. And a lot of you guys think that I'm really critical and negative in the videos I do, but I don't. It's not that I'm negative, and I'm not trying to come across negative. When I do videos from the point of view that I do them at, I do it to try to affect change for the positive, because I've been there through the sport. I've seen it through the good times and the bad times, and I feel like I've got a pretty good pulse on the direction that it's headed. So anytime that I do videos that are perceived as negative, that's really an attempt to inject some type of positive change moving forward with that. But looking back, guys, I'll tell you what, there's two different things that I can tell you about this. Is number one, I don't ever want to encourage anybody to give up on their dreams, what they want to do in this life. If you're passionate and you have desire about something, then you should go for it. But at the same time, let me give you guys a little piece of advice on being a professional angler. It is a selfish occupation. It is a high stress situation or occupation. It is a occupation that offers little to no security. You don't have any insurance on your own. You don't have any 401k. You don't have any pension. You don't have any safety net. It is a gamble, and every tournament that you go out there, you're going to gamble. And as a professional angler, guys, you are going to spend way too much time away from your friends and family. I'm encouraging you right now, from my own perspective, unless you are ate up with it to the point where you can't think about anything else, and you are single, you don't have a family, you don't have a kid, you don't have a girlfriend, you don't have a wife. If you are single and ate up with it, then go for it, because that's what it takes. Again, I want to reiterate here, professional bass fishing is a selfish occupation. I have earned the right to say that because I've been part of that. Your friends and your family are going to sacrifice for your own, deal in life, especially your family. If you have a family and kids, they're going to take a back burner to your career. So, from my perspective, guys, if I had to do it over again, I probably would not have done it and I don't regret it, what I've done it, because I've had some wonderful experiences and, everything's led up to the point where it is right now. But in retrospect, guys, I spent way too much time away from my friends and family. Sure, I got to travel the country, the world. I've been to Japan 4 or 5 times fishing. I've been all over the country fishing. I've experienced that. But that doesn't make up from the time that I spend away from my friends and family. As you get older and as you mature more as a person, you realize how important home is. Being home, being grounded, being surrounded with your friends and family, being surrounded around people that love you and people that you love. That is what is important in life. And all too often, guys, especially when people are young, the first thing they want to do is get away from home. They want to go experience something. They want to try something else. And I can tell you from somebody that's lived it, it's not what it's cracked up to be. There is a tremendous value in being grounded at home and, like I said, being around the people you care about and the people that care about you. So anyway, guys, that's just a few thoughts. That's how it happened for me. That's in a nutshell. I mean, there's a book to be written as far as the individual, all the the experiences I've had in the sport for that many years. I've got thousands of stories I could tell about it, but that's sort of a nutshell about how it went down for me. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed it, guys. We'll talk later.